This is our inaugural. This is our inaugural. That's right. That was the right word.
This is our let's just say this is our very first podcast. Because that way you don't get confused.
Okay. This is our very first podcast. We've been thinking about doing a podcast for a while now, and so we decided with E3 kind of wrapping up, we did why not?
Let's turn a microphone on and talk about things.
And there's a lot to talk about at E3 this year. There is a lot that happened.
This has been like the most exciting E3 I can remember. And that's funny because there were no console releases, which are normally like a big highlight. But there were just so many fantastic and unique games that came out.
So many. And Bethesda kind of started everything off with their first ever something showcase. I think they called it...
Yeah, the Bethesda E3 showcase.
Yeah, E3 showcase, that's what it was. Yeah. Yep. And they announced a few kind of cool things. Of course, Fallout 4. That's what I think everybody's talking about. But also, everyone got to see the new Doom game, which was pretty cool.
Doom.
Now, this was something, and I'm actually wearing my UAC shirt. This is something from QuakeCon. We actually got to see Doom. Pretty much everything they showed, minus some of the multiplayer and the map-making stuff. All the campaign stuff we got to see at QuakeCon last year. So it was really cool to have everyone else see it. What was really interesting is we had kind of formed our own opinions of the new Doom, but really couldn't. No one else had seen it, so you can't really discuss what everyone else thought. And it was really interesting to see.
A year ago we did, yeah.
Yeah, it was nearly a year ago. So it was really interesting to see everyone's response and to the new Doom.
And they were a lot of them were similar to what initially we thought. Well, we weren't super pleased with it, and I was wondering if we were just being ultra pessimistic or something, but it seemed like a lot of people had similar things to say. Like, it didn't look bad, but it just didn't look exciting. It just looked like
it looked very predictable. And of course they said that, the aim and the goal for this Doom was to bring it back to its roots, make it feel like classic Doom again, which is not really... I don't know. I mean, we'll have to wait till the game is released to make any final conclusions, but it doesn't seem like that's something that can... It doesn't seem like that would fly in today's world of video games.
Well, see, that's the problem. It's like this with any type of game. When you go back to... I mean, the original Doom was revolutionary, and then... And how many years ago was that?
Oh, that was 93, so that was what?
So
22 years ago?
When you try to go back 23 years of gaming evolution and you're trying to recreate that, it's going to feel stale. Like, it almost feels like there's no way that it's not going to feel stale.
Yeah, it's something that you have to... you can go back and try to recreate that feeling, but you can't just replicate what you did 22 years ago. You gotta throw some extra stuff in there.
Yeah.
And it definitely seemed like... It just felt like a generic shooter. It just seems very, like, nothing... Now, visually, it was definitely impressive.
I will give it... It is, and not that I'm... It is highly violent. So, I mean, it does have that going for it. Like, it is far more violent than your average shooter, so... Which I think they were going for.
It definitely feels like classic Doom. Like, it feels like a classic Doom game, but... I mean, by today's standards, classic Doom is not very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the problem is, like, the reason it's not exciting is because everyone has copied it. But, like, if you actually want to make something interesting or new or creative, you're going to have to build upon what everyone else has done.
I mean, imagine if they went back and recreated Duck Hunt. Like, they made a Duck Hunt inspired, and they tried to replicate the original Duck Hunt.
3D, and they go up, and the little dog comes out. Yeah,
it's like
this looks familiar.
Yeah,
like at that point, it wouldn't be Duck Hunt. Like, it would be Duck Hunt 3D remake or whatever. Whereas, like, I think people are expecting an actual new game when they see Doom, but
yeah,
I don't know.
And it is just called Doom. It's not Doom 4. They said it's not a sequel or anything, but. It feels like for id Software, this has to be a home run. Rage, their last game, I don't think sold very well, and it was an okay game. It was definitely flawed. It was all right, but it just seems like this is. I mean, they haven't had it doesn't seem like they've had a really good game since Doom 3, which was 11 years ago now. So we'll see. Well, I'm reserving final judgment for when the game is actually released, but for what they showed so far, now they did show some other cool stuff. Multiplayer's kind of seemed like, whatever, and everyone does multiplayer now, and I think to really stand out in multiplayer, you got to do something really fun and awesome, and maybe it will be. But the other thing that they talked about was their map editor, whatever they called it.
That was that could be interesting.
Cube map cube. What was that? Snap map. Snack pack.
Doom. I'm googling things.
So the Doom snack pack, their level editor, that actually seemed really cool. It allows anyone to very easily create their own maps, and it also seems like you can create your own missions and campaigns and all that stuff. And it seemed fairly, from what they showed, it seemed fairly robust and interesting. And then you can also, of course, upload those and share them with friends and all that fun stuff. So that actually has that going for it. That's going to be pretty significant, I think.
Yeah. But even more interesting than Doom, I'd say, was Fallout.
Oh, yeah.
And that, like, the graphics, honestly, were unimpressive to me. At least in certain sections. The lighting was really nice, especially in some, like, the more... I like the color, too. Like, the everything felt more alive, which I guess it's telling the story directly after the nuclear holocaust happens. Yeah. The explosions. So I really liked how it looked. It felt more, I want to say alive, which is weird because like the whole point of Fallout is everything's supposed to be dead, but it just felt like
definitely it felt more because it is supposed to be the post-apocalyptic. It's supposed to feel very desolate, but and the Fallout 3 I think definitely captured that. It did feel very like barren. Which is, I'm sure that's what they're going for, but I know going back to that, after having played Skyrim and Oblivion and then playing Fallout 3,
for me it was just kind of depressing. It was just like,
I mean, it was fun. It's definitely an amazing game, but I remember playing Fallout 3 and just thinking, man, I need to go back to Skyrim, because Skyrim, of course, feels, it's very
like
lush
this sprawling
and
world,
people feel alive and all that stuff. So Fallout 4, I think definitely looking forward to that.
One of the really surprising things that Todd said was the whole modding thing where they're going to allow mods on the consoles, which I'm really curious how that's going to work, because obviously that doesn't mean you can mod everything. Like there's no way you're running like 4K texture packs on a PS4 or whatever, or some of the crazy lighting I would imagine that would start melting PS4s, but I'm really curious to see how they're going to handle that.
I would imagine it's something like, each mod would have to be console specific. So just like looking around, and maybe you could do some cross-platform stuff, but I imagine most PC mods or mods designed for PC would not be, you could not run on a console. You probably have to have a very console-specific mod. Mm-hmm. And that probably goes up in some kind of marketplace or a store or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible he wasn't even referring to visual or... those type of mods, like, or audio or anything like adding all like the fog and stuff. Like it's maybe he was just talking about like single player or like additional quests and stuff. People have all kinds of different mods like that. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
That would be pretty amazing. Just to be able to download new quests and new areas and all that fun stuff. That would be pretty significant. I mean, that would those games are already they last forever. I don't know of anyone who's actually completed every single quest in a Elder Scrolls or a Fallout game.
To me, that's the beauty of Elder Scrolls. I can pull it out like anytime, and I'm like immediately like, oh, there's 30 things I can do.
Yeah. So I imagine being able to expand that even that game that'll live forever. Yeah. So definitely looks good. They talked about their mobile game, which was pretty cool. Did not see that coming. It looks really interesting. Now, I don't have any sort of Apple devices. I don't have any iOS devices.
Only, thanks.
So
this is an Android household. So.
That was disappointing. I was all excited to download it and play it, especially because he announced, and this is going to be available here in about 30 minutes. And
yeah, he also didn't Did he say for iOS devices, or did he say mobile devices or something?
I don't think
like
he
that?
specifically talked about iOS.
Whatever he said, I was getting the idea that I would be able to find it. So I went to the Google Play Store, and it was not there.
He mentioned something about partnering or something with Apple, and so I got the impression that it was iOS only. But I don't think he came out and specifically said iOS only, which was kind of disappointing. I was definitely looking forward to that because it has like a Sim City or The Sims or like a Sim Tower type feel to it.
Yeah, I got a real good, very Sim Tower vibe going.
And those games are awesome. I love those games. Those games are my jam.
I love Sim Tower. I haven't played that in forever.
Oh man, but yeah, I unfortunately have no access to it, so it's out of. I'm hoping here, hopefully before too long, they announce or release an Android version. I'd feel much better.
Yeah, we can hope.
Then, of course, we had all the Bethesda announcements, which was actually, they did a pretty good job for their first ever sort of like a press conference showcase type deal. They didn't, talk about a ton of content, but the content they did have was...
Holy crap.
You okay?
Okay, I've got a brand new, for those that don't, I've got a brand new microphone here, and it smells so good. It literally smells like a creepy crawler machine. Anyway, back to E3.
So then, Microsoft was kind of next up. I didn't really watch much of the Microsoft press conference. I did see and hear about a few of their announcements. Some of the ones I can remember.
Very much not Call of Duty, which was a big surprise. There was not Call of Duty blowing up everywhere.
Of course,
and then Sony, yeah.
Yeah, so of course Microsoft talked about Halo 5. But then they also talked about things like backwards compatibility, which is coming soon, which I am very excited about.
There's 100 games, I believe, coming out for that. For 100 360 games will be backwards compatible on the Xbox One, and then more to come. And I think it's up to the developers, which is interesting. I'm kind of curious, like if they're leaving it up to the developers, there's definitely going to be certain games that do not get ported over, I think, because there's a lot of people these days are doing like HD remakes and definitive editions and stuff like that, where like if they have the ability to sell it for more money, they're probably not going to port it. I think that's probably going to be the case.
Yeah, I would imagine it's up to the developers, because probably mainly for that reason. There may be some licensing and legal things too, but I would say mainly that I'm sure that's the case because of all of the HD remakes that have been coming out.
Yeah, he was kind of vague. Like when he announced it, maybe I'm just bad at hearing things, but the words he said in my mind converted to, it plays all 360 games. And then later on I saw like, there's a list of 100 games. Like that's not a lot of games. There are a lot of 360 games out there. So
yeah, that's called PR right there.
Yeah. So there was a couple things like that during E3 where I heard it, and it was just, then I realized, for one, and this is Microsoft, so we can segue right into this. The freaking controller that looks amazing, first of all. But,
yes, the Elite
controller. I wonder why they didn't talk about the price. Did you hear what the price is?
I heard what the price is.
Okay, the reason they didn't tell you what the price is for that really awesome controller with the little paddles and all that awesome is because it's $150 for a controller. Like, that's the cost of... Like, how much does a Wii cost? They're like $100. Like, you can buy a console for that.
I mean, the Xbox One itself, I think, is $350, so it's nearly half the price of the console.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think they made an awesome controller, and it's crazy that it's $150.
Yeah, that's maybe a bit too much.
Like 80, I would probably swing 80, and I would only get one, obviously. Like, you're not getting a 4-pack of that, but... $150 for a controller. It's like I'll wait 4 years and buy one used on eBay for $45 or something.
Exactly. When you can buy 3 of the normal default controllers for the price of one.
Yeah, you're doing the price of one.
That's hard to swing.
But yeah, they did announce that, which was kind of out of nowhere, at least for me. I didn't know. I didn't hear anything about that.
Yeah, I didn't really hear much about that. Although controllers aren't really something that I pay much attention to in the gaming news. Then of course they had the new Gears of War game.
That looks very pretty.
Looked amazing. I was wondering what Epic Games had been working on all these years.
It's been a while, yeah.
They, of course, they developed Unreal Engine and all that fun stuff, but I haven't really heard much about the actual games they've been developing. So it's cool to see, like, oh, this is what they've been working on, and it looks amazing. I was a big Gears of War fan when it first came out.
Yes, we did a lot of co-op on that. That was a good game.
Oh yeah, and that was one of the early 360 games that had online co-op, which was really fun, and we had played through that. And of course, Gears of War 2. Usually, it was about after Gears of War 2 is when I kind of got bored of it. And
yeah, I didn't play anything after that. I don't know if maybe I was missing out, but I just kind of stopped after 2.
It seemed like, because Gears of War 2 was a good sequel. But it was like practically the same graphics, a lot of the same weapons, same gameplay. It was basically just like a new story, and of course, multiplayer had a few updates and stuff. But it was a good sequel, but it didn't bring a whole lot of new stuff to the table. So I think after Gears of War 2, it was just kind of like, nah, Gears of War 3 is probably along the same lines, and I'm not interested enough to spend money on it. So then there was Nintendo's press conference. Well,
Nintendo.
It was a video.
Nintendo's
live.
The puppet show.
Oh yeah.
First of all,
because they did something similar last year.
I have a hard time talking about this without coming off sounding like a Nintendo hater, which I am not in any way, shape, or form. But I was very confused as to number one, what was happening half the time, and number two, what their goal and vision is for games or the future of video gaming or their company or their inability to sell hardware. See, yeah. I sound negative, but I just feel like they're also doing a really bad job right now. And I was actually I went online, like after I watched the whole thing, I went online to like see what other people were saying, and there seemed to be a lot of things, or there were a lot of posts and stuff where people were like, that was underwhelming, but man, that was more than underwhelming. That was just bad.
Yeah,
that's my official review
for Nintendo, especially this year, because this is E3. This is the Super Bowl of the gaming industry, and you need to hit this one out of the park, especially for the position that Nintendo is in right now, because Nintendo, the Wii U is not selling great. It's selling pretty horribly. They don't have a whole lot of, at least that I know of, a whole lot of new games on the horizon. We got the new Zelda game, but they haven't really talked much about that in recent days. And 3DS is doing pretty good, but their main, their flagship, the Wii U, has kind of just been off to the side, that no one ever talks about or hears about. So this was their opportunity to really come out and to hit a home run and to just wow everybody.
To take that really expensive screen controller and make something really creative to utilize it. Like, I guess Mario Maker does use that, and I'd love to see how that actually plays out, but I think there's so many other things creative ways they could be using that controller.
Oh, for sure. Like some of the first things that come to mind, at least for me, it's like, well, what if you had just a really awesome version of like a Sim City or something, some kind of like a sim game, like a top-down view type of a simulator type game. Mm-hmm. Those type of games usually have a lot of different objects and stuff and things you can build, and the controller I think would be perfect for that. It's got a touch screen, so you can select different things, something like that, or like a The Sims, but those games aren't really selling so well on PC either. So you'd have to do something really significant there, but something along those lines. But they opened their show with a new Star Fox game, which that's pretty significant. Star Fox is pretty big, and a new Star Fox game is a pretty big deal. It
felt like we were watching an E3 press conference from like 7 years ago. That's what I felt like.
Yeah, the Star Fox was...
And gaming is not all about graphics, but it's also about gaming and creativity, and I didn't really see any unique gaming happening either, like with the Star Fox. Like, it wasn't... I don't know.
Yeah, it seemed like
the whole time I just kept thinking, like, I was literally kind of cringing and feeling like, wow, Nintendo is so out of touch. Like, they feel so out of touch. Like, they'd hop on and be like, and we've got wait till you see what we've got for you, and then they go. We didn't even touch on the freaking the yarn ball thing. Like, there's like a plush toy and more of these. What are those things called? The plastic,
the amiibos.
The amiibos, are those selling?
I don't know.
I would imagine they are if they're still talking about them. When they first talked about them last year at E3, I was like, come on, guys, like. This is the most cliche, cheesy Nintendo thing you could do. It's like, we got little Mario, and you can plug him into the thing, and it doesn't really do anything, and you can collect them. And I don't know.
It seems like. I mean, I don't disagree with their business decision to go there, but it seems like that should be secondary type stuff. That's not that should not be your big E3 announcement that you got new plush toys.
Yeah, when you have nothing Zelda related, like nothing.
Because their biggest thing they talked about was Star Fox. The Star Fox seemed pretty underwhelming. I mean, the graphics were very, from what they showed. Now, of course, this is a stream on the internet, so it's hard to tell, for sure. But it didn't seem exciting. And then on top of that, the gameplay didn't. It felt like Star Fox, but it felt like a game that should have come out halfway in the Wii life cycle, not now.
I mean, and in their defense, they did just come out, like, not just right recently, but fairly recently, they've come out with a Mario Kart game, a Smash Brothers game, a Mario Party game. So, like, those are all really big titles for them, and they just, they obviously aren't going to announce another one 8 months after. That is
something that a lot of people were talking about, is that Nintendo is a company that they announce things kind of, like, throughout the year. Like they don't save everything up for E3, but that being said, I mean E3 is the Super Bowl and you got to come with something.
Especially when it's impossible to not compare when you're like if anything just don't do any type of press conference then cuz you're going to get compared to Sony and Microsoft. Yeah. And it's just kind of weird to have like some like Sony's press conference, you see that and then you see like a puppet show. And they're trying to sell you like a plush toy, and they say absolutely nothing as far as the new Zelda, the new Wii U Zelda goes.
There was nothing significant announced, and I mean Nintendo. It's not the first time they've done this. They've done this in the past, but also in the past they've had the #1 selling console and the #1 selling handheld. They've had the sales number. They didn't have to convince anybody to buy their stuff, but this year they're in a bit of a unique situation where they are by far, as far as the home consoles go, they are by far on the bottom, and this is where they need to really sell some stuff to some people.
Yeah, and
they fell far short. It's like they weren't even really trying, which I'm sure they weren't trying. It does.
I hope they weren't trying. Yeah. And I said this already. I feel so pessimistic, but like I am not anti-Nintendo. Like I have a son named Link. Like I am.
That should tell you everything you need to know.
Exactly. Like I want Nintendo to do awesome and kick butt. I just feel like they're not doing what needs to be done to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Like if they had announced, a Mario 64 style Mario game, if they had talked about the new Zelda and given it a release, like if they were coming out with a new Zelda later this year, so a new Mario game, a new Zelda game, and maybe 2 or 3 other new IPs, I think they, even with their puppet show, even with their plush toys and stuff, I think they could have at least wowed a few people.
Yeah, I have no problem with them having a plush toy. It's just, it's the amount of time they spent on that.
That's like that was one of their big announcements they saved for E3. That's the big Super Bowl. They came to the Super Bowl with plush toys.
Yeah, it's like, and we've got something we've been working on that we're excited to show you.
It's not what
I was working with yarn, and I was trying to conceptualize ways to make the yarn into a physical game type. I don't know. It was just like, what is happening?
I don't care about any of this.
I don't care. I'm sorry.
I think what made it worse is that the Nintendo press conference basically came on the heels of Sony's press conference.
Which, by the way, that was
And Sony, if you didn't see it, you have to watch it. It was probably one of the, if not the best press conference in E3 history.
I would say it's the best. Yeah, it was awesome.
I usually watch these every year, and every year they usually have big elaborate stages and lots of lighting, and their presentation's really good. Sony this year, I mean, they had a good presentation. They had a decent stage and lighting and all that fun stuff, but it seemed like they pulled back a little bit on that, especially with their presentation from stage. The guy came up, and typically they'll talk about sales numbers and how their company is awesome and everything. Sony kind of started off and was like, hey guys, thanks for coming. Check out this game. And immediately the first game that they showed was a long anticipated game that many people, myself included, had just chalked up to it being vaporware, that this is never going to happen. And just immediately, what was cool too is they didn't, they don't say what the game is. You gotta watch the video and figure it out. And of course, The Last Guardian.
That's such a distinct and beautiful art style in that game.
And that was something I remember hearing about it years ago. People talking about, are they going to show it at E3? Is this a real thing? Reading news articles and headlines and stuff throughout the years of, oh no, it's not going to happen. They're running into problems. It's vaporware, all this stuff. And then for Sony to come out and just start off their press conference, bam, check this out. We're doing this.
Yeah, that was awesome. I tuned in late and I wasn't sure what was going on. The first second I saw it, I was like, is this like a Shadow of the Colossus 2 or something? Because there was like the big beast thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called. It's like a dog
with
dog feathers.
Bird or something. Yeah,
feather
it's
dog.
Weird, but yeah. So they start off with that, which was amazing. And, and they just immediately, it was like I don't even know how you would describe it. They like a dump truck. Like they just
dump truck of awesome videos. Yeah, that was like you said, they weren't like, we are very pleased to be here this evening, and we're very happy with the sales of here's look at the chart and here's
we've shipped 22 million units worldwide. It's coming out in Asia and Pacifica and Atlantica and all these other new regions, and here's some new updates. That's the other thing. As far as I know, they didn't talk about any sort of software updates. That's the thing that they usually touch on. Everyone usually touches on that is, hey, we're also bringing DLNA streaming to the PS4 coming later this year.
Yeah.
And, no, it was just like, hey guys, thanks for coming. E3 2015, The Last Guardian.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, I hate when they just like they'll like bullet point stuff and then wait for you to clap in between each time. So it's
like a PowerPoint. It's like
and this will come out in Q4 of this year.
Yeah, but no, they just. And the great thing too, well, it's kind of great, is like they would kind of give like a few sentences, hype up the whatever video was coming up next, whatever game they were going to announce. They would show the thing, people would go nuts, they'd come back, and they would have a few more sentences about that game, and then just right on to the next one. Like it was jammed packed because they had like no time to just sit around and drone on about whatever game it was.
Like they had a board meeting discussion, and some guy was like, hey guys, I think everyone's watching for the game, so let's have more of the games. And they were like, oh, okay.
Like, that's interesting. Bob, that's really
kind of weird. Maybe we could try it.
We'll give that a try, yeah.
We like the charts and the graphs, and we really wanted to integrate PowerPoint as much as we could, but maybe we could add some more of those games you speak of.
I mean, I guess that is kind of what we do. We sell games. Yeah. Then it was right into Horizon something or other. Produced by the same people that gave us Killzone, which looked pretty amazing. That's something I'd never seen. I don't think anyone's really seen that before, but
forgive me. Is that okay?
That's the boat chick.
That was Skyrim with the robot horses, right?
Yes.
See, I thought that was interesting the way they fused a very like it was very Skyrim-esque in like the landscape, but the cool thing was like it was similar to Skyrim, only like there was like remnants of a highly, technologically advanced society that had died. So that was like, I don't know, has that been done before? Like,
not that I know. I thought it was a very unique take on like post-apocalyptic. Like if you just said, oh yeah, it's a post-apocalyptic game with some chick and she's got a bow and arrow. Like you get a pretty good idea in your head of what you think it might be. But when they showed that, it was.
Yeah, and it was very well done, like from a theatrical and emotional standpoint. Like That was a really good. I need to go back and watch that. That was a good trailer. I'm curious to see how that game is because yeah, that may be something I'll be picking up. I don't know.
It definitely looks interesting. And then the next game that I can remember they talked about, the one I was pretty excited about, was the remake of Final Fantasy VII.
That was a beautiful video. And then right at the end, you see a sword. It's like, oh, this is...
Yeah.
See, I did not play through Final Fantasy VII, so maybe there's probably cues throughout that video that people understood. I don't know. Like some of the different places and like the factory type looking things, but... Yeah, once you saw the sword, you knew it's you don't have to play through Final Fantasy VII to know. It's like, oh wow, that's Final Fantasy VII. I'm excited about that too because I've always wanted to play that game. It's just never did, and I know it's a really long game, and I'll definitely play the remake. Yeah,
that was something. You start watching the video, and I was kind of thinking, because they don't tell you what the game is, of course. They tell you at the end. I'm thinking, man, what is this? Is this Final? This looks like Final Fantasy. Is this Final Fantasy VII? And of course, yeah, you see the sword, and immediately it's like, this is Final Fantasy VII. And that was a game that I always wanted for my PlayStation back when it first came out.
Were you not allowed to play it because it was teen?
So,
or was that was teen, right?
Yeah. So this is why I am excited about the remake of the game. When the game first came out, and back then, we didn't have the internet, and so there was no real way to learn about new games and stuff. So typically, buying new games, it would kind of almost be at random or things friends would say. And
it's like, this picture looks cool.
Exactly.
Buy the game.
So that game had just come out, and I think I saw a few commercials on it and stuff, and maybe heard some people talking about it. So I thought, I want this game. This is the game that I want. So we go to the store. We go over to Best Buy, and I asked if I can buy it. And I was told... Well, it had a big T on it, and T meant you had to be at least 13, and I think I was probably 9 or something at the time.
Mom.
And I really wanted this game. And she was like, I don't think so.
What's this rated? This says violence.
Yeah, exactly.
This is no. You are not playing this.
And she went over. She found one of the guys working at Best Buy, and was like, "What?"
I'm not making fun of your mom. I'm just making fun of moms in general. Yeah. It's just more of just a not against you, but just a sexist remark against all females, moms.
Yeah,
because that's okay.
Everyone knows what you're talking about. I think everyone's experienced that.
Yeah, everyone's experienced trying to buy video games. Like, what's it rated?
Yeah. So she goes over to the guy that works at Best Buy and is like, "What? Why is this rated T? What's in the game that makes it?"
Did she really say? She asked the guy. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, and he's like,
"Let me read the box for you."
He's like, I think this. Cause I think on the back it said something like mild language or something. Hold on.
So the words that are right about to come out of this man's mouth are what decided your fate of whether or not you at this point in time in 2015 have or have not played Final Fantasy.
And he went on to describe some of the bad words that were used in the game. And so I apologize if children are listening, because I am about to recite some of these words.
Oh boy.
He said, it's like, I think they said like hell and damn a couple times in the game. And that was like, oh, you can't have that. You can't have that.
You could hear him say that. That was fine.
So growing up, stuff like that in games was not allowed. However, I could go to the library and take out Back to the Future, which, I mean, everyone, Back to the Future, whatever. But there's a lot of language in that movie. But no, that was fine. I could watch that all day long.
But if it's a video game, it needs to be like, Sesame Street.
Exactly. And so that I was then not allowed to play it. And at the time, I was disappointed, but like, fine, whatever. A few years go by, and everyone's like, "Oh, do you remember Final Fantasy VII? Did you ever play it? That was the best game ever."
I don't want to talk to you right now.
And so I've had to live with that. Of course, I can buy it now, but
all that guy would have had to say was, he'd just take a look at you and just like wink and be like, "Oh, this is a great game. Lots of educational." Like, oh, it's super.
Yeah, I don't know why they rated it.
See, the thing you need to know about like these rating systems is they're really excessive. Like if it's a teen, it's probably the equivalent of like a PG movie, maybe G. The video game, it's just a weird rating system. You know what I mean? And she'd be like, "Oh, okay."
It's like, "Oh, okay, you can have it then."
And then you would have played Final Fantasy VII.
Because some of my favorite gaming moments are games that I don't know much about, and then buy it and play it and go into the game not knowing anything about it, but it turns out to be a fantastic game.
Never thought through that, but that's very true. Like, your expectations can ruin everything. And
exactly.
Yeah, when I was younger, like, when I'd buy a game, I'd walk around Best Buy and see something that looks cool and buy it and get home and install it, and then it was just like, what is this? And you'd have to figure it out.
Exactly. Or renting games, back when people used to rent games.
Yep.
I mean, I remember that happened with me with Smash Brothers. It was like, what is this Smash Brothers game? It looks cool. It's Mario, whatever. So you get home and you play it, and it's like, this is amazing. And I am still slightly bitter about that day about Final Fantasy VII, because everyone talks about how it's like the best game ever made.
You realize you're at an age. I have a very similar story. Actually for the exact same console as well. This was an M-rated game though. Metal Gear Solid Tactical.
Yeah.
I can never say tactical espionage action. There we go.
There you go.
Because I got a demo for that in a jam pack. If anyone remembers what jam packs were, like the demo.
It was from Pizza Hut.
Yes, it was. It was from Pizza Hut.
Yep.
Forgot about that. And the demo was just the coolest thing in the world, and you could knock on things, and the guy would go, "Huh? What was that noise?" And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I was like, "Mom, I want this," and she was like, "Mature sexual themes?" And I was like, "Oh, geez,
like,
this isn't happening."
That's not.
But anyway, my point is, I rectified that about a year ago, and I played through that game, and it was fantastic. And you should do the same with Final Fantasy VII. That
was something I've always, because they released Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation store or market, whatever they call it, and I always planned on going back and buying that and downloading it and playing it, but there were so many other games happening, it just wasn't a priority. But since they announced the remake, I am very excited to get to experience that.
They also, correct me if I'm wrong, because I had some beers while I was watching the show, so I don't really fully remember. But I'm pretty sure they said they're releasing Final Fantasy VII for iOS as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which, again, it's like, oh, cool. I would have bought that for Android probably, but...
Yeah, but what's with the iOS? I don't get it. Apple's shelling out money probably for exclusive rights and whatever. So they did that. They talked about some indie games, then I kind of wasn't really paying attention. I was kind of looking down at my phone, and so they're talking about their indie games. They start playing a video. And then I
screamed at my TV. I screamed at my television.
They started playing a video, and I look up, and there are those flower petals falling, and the music starts playing, and immediately
I literally was just like, "What?" Like, I screamed, and then I had to apologize to my wife because she was like, "What is wrong with you?" I'm like, "No, what?"
Yeah, that was my reaction too. It was like,
yeah,
it's like, no.
If you don't know what we're talking about,
so every year we hope and we pray, and it never happens. But this year they finally announced Shenmue 3.
Shenmue 3.
And
a dream come true. Shenmue 1 was and still is my favorite game of all time. So the announcement of Shenmue 3 for me was the highlight of this E3 and probably any E3
we have been waiting so long, and I keep trying to figure out, like, what's a good analogy for people that don't understand it. I'm trying to figure out how could I explain this to someone who doesn't understand Shenmue or the significance of this.
It's been 14 years since Shenmue 2. And it's just one of those things that gets tossed around on the internet. It almost feels like it's like every 3, 4, maybe 6 months, there's something, someone posts something, and it's like a screenshot, and then everyone freaks out about it, and then it's like, oh, that was faked.
Or it kind of dies off.
Or Suzuki would come out and be like, I'd love to make Shenmue 3, but I can't make it work. And everyone's like, awesome.
Yeah. It's probably the closest thing, at least that I could think of so far, the closest analogy I can come up with is, imagine if Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back comes out, and that movie kind of ends on a cliffhanger. Imagine if nothing else happened for years and years and years. There's all these rumors and whispers of some other new Star Wars movie that they might be working on, but it's probably not going to happen. And eventually you just kind of think, okay, it's probably just, I have to accept that it's probably never going to happen. and then they announce a new Star Wars movie that concludes the story, and
it's like that.
It's like that. So
super exciting for me. Many people didn't care at all. Like, I've seen quite a few different reviews of the press conference. Are like, and then the Shenmue thing. I mean, I could care less about that. For me, I couldn't care more.
Yeah,
is that the right word?
Yeah, I think you did that right. Yeah,
because then people say I could care less, or then they'll say I couldn't care less.
Yeah, see, when they say I could care less, that's not right, because that means that they could care. So
anyway,
Shenmue 3, they started to fund this thing. They started a Kickstarter. And to try to, I guess, probably gauge interest and raise a few funds. Immediately when the Kickstarter went live, Kickstarter crashed.
Which was awesome.
Because so many people were trying to get to this page to give money, and they crashed the site. It's broken all sorts of records so far. It is number one for, I believe it's the number one video game Kickstarter of all time, and I forget, as far as all Kickstarters, it's up there too, but it's definitely the number one quickest. It was of video games, it was the fastest Kickstarter to reach $1 million. I think they did it in just like a couple hours or something. It was the number 2 of all of Kickstarter to reach 1 million. The fastest is the second fastest of all of Kickstarter. The first was Pebble, one of the Pebble devices. I think, and this is my opinion, but I think that if the site hadn't crashed from so many people trying to get there, it probably would have reached $1 million faster.
And it did reach its goal of $2 million within 9 hours, which is insane.
Yeah, that's nuts. It's currently sitting at coming up to just under 3.3 million. It's got 28 days to go.
And then for many people, somewhat controversially, that's a hard word to say. So it came out now that Sony is actually backing the project, so that kind of pissed some people off. I personally don't. I'm just happy that it's happening.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it's just, which is probably a bit of a marketing, probably a bit of a stunt trying to gauge interest before they actually fully commit to it, to see if people are actually serious about.
Yeah, I feel both ways. I can definitely, like, if I was Sony, and Shenmue is my favorite game of all time. If I was Sony, I don't know if I would just be like, yeah, here's $50 million, make Shenmue 3. Because honestly, the majority of gamers these days probably were barely alive when Shenmue 1
it's
came out.
The third installment in this thing too, so you have to kind of play the first two.
And both of which were not even available on a single console. In America at least. So like you need to buy a Dreamcast and a Dreamcast and an Xbox to play through Shenmue 1 and 2. So it's just not a super accessible game at this point in time.
Exactly.
I can also sympathize with people that, like, super hardcore fans that thought, like, this is it, like, Shenmue, like, the Shenmue is on my shoulders, I need to pay. Like, people spent like $800 and then they find out, oh, well, I didn't need to do that because Sony's going to be probably tripling the $2 million or more, probably more. It's probably, I would hope that they're going to put at least,
I'm hoping for
20 to 30 because it's going to be an open world game. But anyway, yeah, with all that said, it's awesome that Shenmue's happening.
Yeah, so if you're into Shenmue, you can hop on the Kickstarter. Even $30 will get you a digital copy of the game for PC or PS4.
And for $100, you can have your name in the credits. And I haven't checked recently, but last I checked, there was many thousands of people. So
we're currently at 4,023.
Yeah, the credits of that game will be very long.
Yeah, but if it's something you're mildly interested in, give them $30 because you're basically pre-buying the game, and $30 for a game, that's not a bad deal if you ask me.
I don't remember much of anything after once Shenmue was announced. I went into this I was just stopped paying attention to the video. I went online. I started I checked out the Kickstarter. I started seeing what people were saying, news. I kind of zoned out just because that just threw me.
That was
what else was there?
That was probably the biggest bombshell in E3 history. Was Shenmue 3?
I think it was. I mean, it wasn't that big to a certain amount of people, But like I feel like I don't know, overall it was huge.
Yeah, overall, in video gaming history, that was like very. I mean, it still is very significant. I don't know that anything like that's ever happened before. It's the first of its kind, which is exciting. Yeah, after that, I don't remember the rest of the Sony conference. I know they ended with Uncharted 4 and some actual gameplay. Which
they had some issues there. Apparently,
yeah.
Apparently, the dude was pretty pissed off.
Yeah,
the guy from
they had some technical issues.
Naughty Dog,
but
even with it, I mean that's to be expected. You can't hold that against them. At least I wouldn't. The game looks beautiful.
Game looks beautiful. They are doing the like an HD remaster of Uncharted 1, 2, and 3 for PS4, which I'm excited. I've barely played any of the Uncharted games. It's something I always wanted to get to, but I always felt like I had to start with the first one, and then they came out with a third one, and so it was kind of...
Yeah, you feel like you're like under the gun. It's like, oh, I can't even catch up at this point.
Yeah, but those games have always been incredibly beautiful. I've heard very good things about them. So Uncharted 4 definitely looks exciting. I'm excited to get the HD remaster collection and finally get to play through it.
I see. I wasn't paying it. Is that 1 through 3 HD for next gen console or what?
Yeah, it's for PS4.
It's new gen consoles is what they call it.
Oh.
I heard that thrown around a couple times at E3. New gen, because it's not next, it's current. But current sounds lame, so you use the word new.
Yeah,
anyway,
that's
marketing
for the new boxes. So those were the pretty big announcements there. Of course, other companies announced a lot of their games. Need for Speed.
Oh, that was pretty. That looked very.
Need for Speed. I am very excited about that. The camera was
crazy. Did you? Has that I have not been up on the Need for Speeds currently, but the crazy camera shift around the corners, is that new?
I don't remember seeing that. I've kind of tuned out Need for Speed. It's kind of got the sort of like the Call of Duty effect going on. Because Need for Speed, so yeah, I've always been a big Need for Speed fan, going way back to the first one. And then some years later, they came out with Need for Speed Underground, which was awesome. It was sort of like the first of its kind.
That song was in there, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was like the title menu song. So Need for Speed Underground was amazing. It was very unique, different. You had never seen that type of game before. Need for Speed Underground 2 came out and was just all the more amazing. And then they kind of got on this kick of just, one Need for Speed game every year.
Just dumping it out.
Yeah, and I could go into all the reasons why I don't like that, how it cheapens the brand and all sorts of stuff. But basically, I became very disinterested in Need for Speed just because you got one every year. So I mean,
did they do the Call of Duty thing where they're like swapping it between dev houses?
Probably. I don't think one dev house could do a single game in a year.
See, that's...
But still, I mean, you can only do so much when you release a game every year. It's kind of the same thing. It's what Call of Duty has been suffering from. It's you can't make a whole new game every single year because, I mean...
You can do it 2 times in a row, maybe 3, but people are going to catch on. It's like, oh, this is...
Yeah, it's like how much... Like, even if you have another company working on it, there's only so many ideas you can cram into it. And so when you do one every year, they become iterations and not...
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, what's the deal with this one? It's like, have you seen the new Call of Duty? It's got hook shots or whatever. It's just like they add some stupid thing.
Yeah, it's like...
this one's got zombies.
It's like like the same game as the previous one
with zombies,
but it's got some kind of gimmick attached to it.
It's this plus this stupid thing that has nothing to do with why the original Call of Duty sold.
And then you got to pay $60 to get it. So, and then you get into like this. So it's like, a Call of Duty or Need for Speed game comes out, and maybe you wait, say, 4 to 6 months to buy it. Well, why would I buy it now when a new one's coming out in another 6 months? Why would I just wait for that one? It's just
that just makes me so uninterested. It's just like, I don't.
Exactly, and that's kind of where Need for Speed. For me, that's where Need for Speed got. So, but it's been 2 years now since they released one. They took a year off, thankfully. And it seems like it's just called Need for Speed is the title, which that's a whole nother thing. I hate it when they when they name it the same thing as a previous game.
How does that even like like just with Google searches? It's like annoying. It's like
I don't because they did it for Need for like Need for Speed. They did it for
Tomb Raider.
They did it for Sonic years back. A lot of games have been doing that. And it makes it really hard in conversation too, because when I say, "Oh yeah, did you see Need for Speed?" And
Which
just a
conversation. Just Need for Speed in general.
Yeah, so you have to differentiate. You have to say, "Oh, the original Need for Speed." Well, then you just add all these extra words on top of something. It's like when they came out with the Xbox One.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's been a little while, so it's a little bit easier. But when you say Xbox One,
yeah,
it's like, "Oh, dude, do you remember MechAssault for Xbox One?"
Yeah,
it's like, whoa, I didn't know they made a new MechAssault. No, the original.
No,
Xbox.
I mean the original one.
Oh, yeah. So it's just call it like just give it a subtitle.
Anything that doesn't cause confusion is generally a good idea to roll with.
Yeah, just give it a subtitle. It's not gonna make your game sell less. But one game that did give itself a subtitle that did not just go with the original name was Mirror's Edge.
That looks very pretty.
Mirror's Edge Catalyst, which I'm really glad they didn't call it Mirror's Edge 2. That's another whole number thing, just tacking on numbers. But anyway, Mirror's Edge. I first saw that back at I was watching a live stream of E3 back in 2008, and I had never heard or seen anything about it before. And they were like, "Oh yeah, let's check out this new game called Mirror's Edge." And like immediately, with the music and the visuals and the game style, I was immediately hooked. It was like, this is unique, this is different. I need this. I need these things. And so immediately when it first came out, and actually, it's a kind of a boring story, but it took me like 3 or 4 tries to actually buy the game when it first came out.
Yeah, buying games is hard.
Yeah, I went to Best Buy. And they didn't know what I was
the game.
I went to Best Buy because it was originally supposed to come out like on a Tuesday, and so I went to Best Buy and they were like, "Oh, let me look. I don't know about that game." So they're looking into the system, they're looking in the back, and no, that comes out on Thursday or whatever it was. Maybe it was the next day, Wednesday. Like, okay, fine. So I come back the next day, and they're like, it's not on the shelf. So they're like, let's look in the system here. We haven't got them in yet. Well, our shipments usually come in the afternoon, so I'd come back later today. We'll probably have it. So eventually I go back, and I eventually was able to get it. But that game, I was a huge fan of that game just because, especially even in 2008, and it's still like this today, it seems like every game is a first-person shooter with some kind of gimmick tacked onto it.
Yeah.
And Mirror's Edge was one of those games that it was first person, but it was incredibly unique.
Yeah, it was very unique.
And I'm a big fan of unique and original games, and it was super fun to boot.
Speaking of unique, what was the Dream thing for PS4? What was that called? That was I couldn't tell what was happening. Like I loved how I don't know what the word is, not like vague or it was just so
ambiguous.
Yeah, like I loved how interestingly weird it looked, but I also felt like all the stuff they were showing, it's like how much of this was actually created. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they just it looked like it was a game for making in-game cinematics.
I think that's what it is, and
yeah,
they fully admit that's
called dreams.
Yeah, and they fully admit that it was very there was you have to kind of get into it to actually understand the game. I think they ended it with like if you watch this and you have like a lot of questions, don't worry, that's normal. So it seemed very intriguing.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's my cup of tea, but it definitely looked interesting.
I was just happy. I was just happy to see something weird and intriguing. Just the fact that I was confused. It wasn't just like, oh look, it's
Look, it's a first-person shooter with jetpacks. Isn't that
it's a
cool?
first-person shooter, jetpacks, or it's a role-playing game with swords, and there's
a lot of those these days.
Yeah,
like a lot of those like medieval type games.
It's like, oh, it's a futuristic shooter with spaceships, or it's a racing. Yeah, so it definitely was like you could tell they were trying to break a mold.
Yep,
come up with something interesting.
And I think they did it because I still don't know exactly what it is or how you play it or what it does, but that's what they were going for. So they succeeded.
Speaking of weird breaking molds and such, which press conference was No Man's Sky? Was that?
Oh yeah, No Man's Sky. That was Sony. That's a PS4 deal.
Yeah. That also very vague. I mean, far less vague than the Dream one, but that it seems promising. But definitely need to see more to figure out like what an actual block of gameplay looks like, other than just showing us the exploration stuff. Yeah,
like that's something. And of course, they showed it off last year at E3, and I was immediately intrigued. But I definitely want to see like so when you sit down and you fire it up, what do you do?
Yeah, I feel like for having a whole year, what they showed this year, they could have showed last year. Like, all they did was really just give you a glimpse of the scope of the game, which was insane, which also wasn't necessarily the scope of the game. It's more or less the scope of what the game could be, because it shows you all those different star systems, but they don't exist until you go there, and then the game creates it. But it's an interesting idea. I probably will end up buying that and dumping some time into it, because it sounds pretty cool.
Yes.
It just sounds cool that any amount of time you put into it, you're altering and creating a game world that other people will then experience. So that's a cool aspect. Right, because it's MMO, right? It's not. Yeah, it's like an MMO. It's not like
that's how I understand it. Yeah. So that definitely looks like it'd be a lot of like good multiplayer action going on there. So a lot of cool stuff. Mirror's Edge 2, definitely gonna pick that one up.
There was a Destiny expansion, which I found to be just utterly unexciting.
Yeah, I was not excited about that. I've heard the last expansion that they had released was pretty significant. I mean, I enjoy Destiny, but that's just because I think they want like $20 or $30 for those expansions.
It's like, guys, I already bought the game, and honestly, it was too short to begin with, so I don't want to pay more.
That's a whole nother thing. Did you see all the controversy? It was right before the first DLC expansion.
It was on the freaking disc.
Yeah, they have it on the disc. Yeah. I was talking with someone the other day about that, and
so like you literally bought it, but you didn't have it. You bought the data.
Exactly. Like the bits are on the disc. I was talking to someone the other day. They were saying like, oh yeah, like the first Destiny expansion, it was really weird. It was only like a few hundred megabytes. I was like, well, that's because it was already on the disc. He was like, what? Like, yeah, someone hacked it before the first DLC came out, and they found all of the content was on the disc.
That's like the epitome of like sending out a I don't know.
It's kind of sleazy.
Yeah.
Like, hey, do you want to give us money to play this thing that you already have? No.
Yeah, that Destiny to me was fun, but also disappointment. But that goes back to the hype that went around it. Like, I had such high hopes for that.
Yeah.
Being a Halo fan and a Bungie fan and stuff, but
it was Destiny. Yeah, I still enjoy it. It's still a fun game, but it's not nearly as big and as exciting as I was expecting.
And the complexity the complexity that the game does have, I feel like feels tacked on. Like, instead of it actually taking, like, if you're gonna, like, when you're spending time trying to learn things or figure out things, it just doesn't seem. What I'm trying to say is the fact that they have like 3 or 4 different currencies within the game, and then like the leveling system after you get to a certain point turns back into an armor level. Like, the whole thing just felt like it felt convoluted, like too convoluted in my opinion. I just found myself having to Google way too many things trying to figure out what the heck the game mechanics were, and then after I learned what it was, I was just like, why is it like that?
It feels like none of them that designed the game had ever played an RPG before and wanted to add RPG elements into the game, but having never played one before, wasn't really sure how that worked, so they just kind of made it up as they went along.
Yeah. And just ended up with a far too... I just hate the fact that, like, I don't know. There's just multiple currencies. That's just weird.
Yeah, it was... I still enjoy it. It's still fun, but it was still a disappointment. It's kind of like... Halo 2 and 3. I still enjoyed it. Still have some really amazing memories playing those games, but ultimately they did not live up to my expectations.
Oh man, yeah, Halo 2. That was like,
oh jeez.
And we played that like 1,000 hours. But
yeah, I literally put like over 1,000 hours into that game. But we both got it at midnight, right when it came out, and we hopped online to play some multiplayer.
Yeah, EB Games had free donuts. I remember that.
I didn't get free donuts. But we hopped on multiplayer, and we're trying to figure out, how do you create a server?
We like hop up in a chat with someone. It's like, guys, everyone else was like saying the same thing. Yeah. Guys, did you figure out how to make a server?
They're like, yeah. They're like, I haven't found it yet. They're like, but I'm sure there's a way that you can do it. We're like, yeah, we need to keep looking, I guess.
Like a matchmaking server. Or like, why can't I pick my? I mean, that's because we were used to Counter-Strike on PC, and in their defense,
that was every game up until that point.
Yeah, that's true. And the funny thing is, like, every game after that point had matchmaking, just like Halo.
Yeah, there was the matchmaking was like that's like dating. That was like a dating website before Halo 2.
Yeah, it was server finding before that.
Yeah, exactly. It was every Xbox game that was on Xbox Live up until that point. There was search for servers. Create a server, or there's like a quick start thing where it just found a server and dumped you inside of it. And so we kept hitting matchmaking, and it just kept dumping us inside of these things that we didn't pick.
I mean, in their defense, I'm sure the reasoning for that was to make the leveling more even. Like, obviously, if you can make your own server, you pick the same map and whatever.
It definitely, like,
I think it was all based upon the leveling.
It works. And the other thing, too, was that it wasn't necessarily like a client server type architecture, which every other game had up until that point. It was more peer-to-peer. So it kind of had to gather everyone before the game started, and then do all the networking and shenanigans between each peer and do all that stuff. And it actually, as far as handling lag and network and all that kind of stuff, it worked really well, because every other Xbox Live game, that was a big deal. It was very laggy. It was because it was usually client server, and your server was your Xbox, and most people did not have fast internet connections. PC was another deal because you set up actual servers on high speed internet connections and stuff, so it wasn't as big of a deal. But when you're playing on consoles, you don't have that. You had like DSL and low speed cable modems back then. So I think it was a combination of just gameplay and networking, pretty much, to give you the best experience. But it was still, what were we talking about?
I don't know, how do we got Halo? We went on a Halo 2 tangent, but that's okay. But yeah, I think we pretty much covered all the at least to us. I mean, obviously, I'm sure there's games that people thought were amazing that we didn't talk about. So
there's still a lot of games. Star Wars Battlefront looked amazing.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about Battlefront.
Metal Gear Solid 5, which I saw someone posted earlier. There was like a 45-minute gameplay demo of MGS5.
Oh jeez, I need to see that.
Several other games, like tons of games released that looked really amazing. You had The Division, which looks amazing. I forgot. Yeah, that looks really good. No Man's Sky we talked about. Uncharted. So just a lot of.
What was the other Clancy game?
There was like a new Ghost Recon, I think.
No, the Call of Duty one. Call of Duty-ish one.
Call of Duty-ish one?
Yeah, the one with like the.
Rainbow Six Siege.
Yeah, Siege. That looked real. Like they did a demonstration of that. That was the Xbox. That was during the Xbox conference. That game looked really. I'm really excited about that game.
It had a very Counter-Strike vibe to it.
Yeah, it felt very Counter-Strike. It felt like a really well matured and evolved Counter-Strike. Like, yeah, I'm really excited to try that and see how it actually feels, because it looked great.
So a lot of really great games announced. A lot of bombshells were dropped. A lot of fun stuff coming up. Hopefully Nintendo can get their stuff together.
Yeah.
I did not see much about Final Fantasy 15. They may have talked about it, but
I was expecting more of that. I mean, And Square even had their own conference. I watched part of it, but I didn't see anything about Final Fantasy 15.
But that's another exciting game I'm looking forward to. A lot of cool stuff I've read this other places too, so I don't feel alone in saying that this is probably one of the best, if not the best, E3s ever.
I would. It's the best I can remember. I mean,
and it was all game focused, which usually the exciting you talked about this earlier. The exciting E3s for me are when
it's
new
like
hardware
some hardware release where it's like, oh, that's what the controller looks like that I'll be holding for the next 7 years. But no, this was just like nothing hardware related at all. Like right, there's other than the controller for the Xbone.
There was a lot actually. Sony talked a little bit about Project Morpheus, which is their VR headset.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
There was a lot of talk on some of the live shows during E3 about Oculus Rift and a lot of games.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of games that would utilize that. One of those was Eve Valkyrie, which looked pretty cool. That utilized Oculus Rift. A lot of other fun stuff.
But yeah, it's exciting E3. It made me super pumped for next year. Which it probably won't be as exciting, but I thoroughly enjoyed this year's E3.
I think the really cool thing, especially coming up next year, is like we're pretty much just getting started with this generation of consoles, and so we're just now starting to see
things are going to look pretty.
Yeah,
they're going to get real nice.
We're just now starting to see what developers can do, and so next year. Who knows? It's probably gonna be nuts.
Yeah, it's always funny. Like a console come out and it looks cool, and then like 3 years later, someone will release a game and be like, "How is this capable of? Why did you do this before?" Like, but I'm sure there's a lot of stuff.
Development time and whatnot. Yep. So that was our first podcast.
That was the first one. Yeah, we need to the thing we could come up with so many different topics to just ramble on about. So I'm pretty excited. Talk about like old school gaming. Talk about like Zelda. Talk about Nintendo games that I like.
Or
things of that nature. Or
things Nintendo could do to do better.
Yeah, like we'll do like
we'll give them free tips.
Free Nintendo tips.
Yeah. So thanks for listening.
And cue the outro music. We don't have outro music yet.
We should make some outro music.
That was the fade out.
That's good.
It was abrupt, but
that's good.
Okay.
Yeah. Bye.
Okay, say okay, bye.